All right, this is Dawson Lewis from St. Vincent. I'm a digital streaming manager, and you're watching World Music Views.
Yeah, man. Wagwan,
All
wagwan.
right, good vibes. What's
Yeah,
up,
man.
man?
Yeah, all right. How things, boss?
I'm good, you know. I'm good.
All right. So we have Dawson Lewis of D Music here. Welcome to World Music Views for the first time.
So hold on. Not with the music. The music is actually no longer. So we have to discuss. We'll discuss what's coming next.
Oh, wow. So breaking news. Breaking news. We have Dawson Lewis here who's about to tell us about the changes happening, but he's one of the cutting edge leaders in streaming in the Caribbean, leading music and DSP platform, and he's about to tell us about it. So Dawson, first of all, tell us where you're from and how you got your job.
Interesting. So it's a journey, as many people would understand as you pursue your passions in life. Originally from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I have been in the music industry almost 13 years. Started out DJing while I was in university. Had a group of guys. One of my friends from Zimbabwe, another one from Barbados, and myself from St. Vincent. And we decided that we were going to introduce reggae and Afrobeats to Mississippi, of all places. And so my interest in formally being involved in music started there. And then had the opportunity to work with a lot of up and coming acts, started a record label. And, from there, continued working with, many different artists across different genres, gospel, soca, dancehall, now that I'm in Jamaica. And then, it so happened that during that period of time, I had also been curating a very commercial career, sales, marketing, and, and then evolving into the digital space. In the telecoms arena, and when the telecom businesses decided to make that move to becoming digital, I think the combination of all that experience kind of came to light, and the opportunity opened for me then to come to D Music at the time, and that was about 2 years ago now, in Jamaica. And we operated in 32 countries, including the South Pacific and 2 Latin American countries in Panama and El Salvador. So that's a bit about how I got there.
What is or was D Music?
All right, so D Music is a DSP, all right, streaming platform, similar to the likes of the Spotify's and Apple Music. However, one of the key focuses of D Music was Caribbean content, Caribbean curators, and access to the app was made available through, a data plan on the digital network. And so that was available to any market that Digicel operated in.
And then you said D Music is no more. Why is that?
Yeah.
And what has replaced it?
All right. Well, I think on that side, there's not a replacement coming from that side, but I am currently working on some projects that will see, I would say, the reemergence of a new platform, and that will be coming in the next few months. So I'm excited about that. The goal is to continue to put Caribbean content creators and Caribbean music at the forefront. And that's one of the challenges I think that we have as Caribbean content creators and music industry persons is, where do we find our space? And if we can't find it, we have to create it, similar to what you're doing with World Music Views. And that's the goal, and that's exactly where things will be headed.
So what was the reason why you decided to discontinue? Who owned D Music, by the way? Was it founded by Digicel or someone owned it and you licensed it?
It was a licensed product. Yeah, it was a licensed product. Yeah. So there's a company by the name of Quack Media. They're pretty well known, particularly in the Latin American markets.
What media?
Quack. It's spelled Kuck, and they've been around for some time. They would have started out as a company called GlobalNet, who was one of the first companies, if not the first, to actually introduce ringtones and ringback tones to the telecom industry. And by virtue of the understanding of the connectivity between the telco business and the record labels, right, and obviously the companies that control the content, they evolved into becoming a music streaming platform provider, and so they've done that in multiple markets across the world.
So the D didn't mean Digicel.
Probably.
All right. So from your position, did you find that Jamaicans were consuming music, and were they leaning into Digicel and the plans to get the music? Because it would be a paid streaming service if you had to get the phone and a credit to get the music. So did you find that persons were leaning into paid music? And the second part of my question is, did Digicel or Crack pay record labels and rights owners from that revenue?
Okay, so good question. I'll answer the last part of the question first. Yes, that is a key part of of the focus. It is also to be able to ensure that it's being monetized and the rights holders are collecting. And in terms of the appetite, which is it was there an appetite. There's an immense appetite for music in the Caribbean, and I think the key is access, right? And so the model that would have been the Digicel model would have been, if you are a Digicel subscriber, there's going to be packages available to you that include music, and that would have allowed you to be able to access up to 60 million songs at the time, similar to the likes of Tidal or any of the other major DSPs. And that was obviously what was being promoted. And I think that, I can definitely say there was definitely a demand, and there still is.
And to be clear, with the severance of D Music from Digicel, D Music as an entity no longer operates.
It no longer exists, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you look at how music is being consumed, who are the top people? Who are the most streamed people on the D Music app?
Well, Vybz Kartel was definitely top for some time. There was a period when Massacre, with the release of 438, did take over. Shensia sneaked in there at some point. Shaggy, Adele. We saw Skilly Bang take that position in terms of singles. And so, the data is driven by consumption, right? And so therefore it is what the audience is consuming is generally going to reflect, in that streaming data. And so, I'm sure the names that I mentioned would ring a bell, and particularly some of the projects I mentioned. Massacre's album, I think, definitely resonated across the industry as a top project within the last few months. And so, that would definitely show in the numbers.
So transparency has now been a big thing in the music industry in terms of how music is performing. Like other DSPs, they drop their charts, daily charts, weekly charts, monthly charts, year-end charts, not to compete with a Billboard, but to complement a Billboard. One of the things I'm doing with World Music Views is curating that data, helping the music business at large to understand, because I believe with that transparency comes measurement, and with measurement comes value, because if we can value the industry, we can decide who is at the top, as you said, and the value of the actual music can be quantified. Will the new thing that's coming have chart being a part of it, daily, weekly, monthly?
Yeah, I think so. So let's talk about my vision. I mean, we talked about the product I ran, but that comes with a certain vision for where I sit and some of the things that I think we are missing in terms of our business in this part of the world. And I got to say, I like what you're doing. I follow it very closely. And I think that's also missing as well. And so, what you're doing is raising consciousness about, and having these conversations with people like myself is very important. So I want to say I appreciate what you're doing. So in those lines, along those same lines, my vision, and when I entered this business, it was, from a perspective of we lack a lot of structure. And we constantly hear these conversations. We're not getting the recognition we deserve. We're not winning the awards we think we should win. When there's no categories for us. But the reality is that we are the ones that need to start building that structure around the content and the creativity that we're making. And so, the way that I see myself fitting into that space is, at this point, obviously in the digital space generally, whether it's podcasting or streaming, and they definitely go together in today's age. And of course, the data that comes from that and the ability to be able to collect that data based on what users are doing and what they're listening to and the content they're engaging with is very key. And then being able to qualitatively and quantitatively, put into place, who are the top artists, who are the artists that are on the bubble, who are the artists we need to be looking out for, who's next. And I think that's key for us. And I think, we are in a data-driven world, and the music business is not an exception to that at all.
Yeah. Your current station at Digicel, or whatever the company is now, is an important one for the future of music and coupling that with how people consume music. Between the time you started till now, have you seen a difference between then and now with the consumers?
Oh yeah, I think the access is key, and I mentioned that earlier. The fact that one of the things that we did well was we removed the need for a credit card, and that gets into another conversation, which is the lack of financial inclusion. But it affects everything in the commercial space.
I did the financial inclusion commercial, by the way. I did the BOJ. I produced and directed it, so I'm helping.
No, great. So, but the point is, it's at every touch point, right? Music and DSPs, no different. So, we definitely saw that because, obviously there are persons who want to have access to a catalog of music and content and their favorite artists and music videos and podcasts, and they're not able to do that simply because the tool they need to subscribe they don't have it or can't have access to it. So when you remove that barrier for entry or lower it, immediately you're opening some doors to persons who would not necessarily have access. And so definitely we did see growth. Yeah.
Who are your favorite artists? Favorite reggae artist first, and then give me an all-time. That
question should not be allowed to music people. I will tell you. I won't say I will tell you artists that I listen to. I'll put it that. So, let's start. We said reggae first, right? So, I'm a huge Barry Hammond fan. I love Taurus Riley. Newcomers, I'd say Dre Island, one of my favorites. Up and comers. Bob, for sure. I see him sitting nicely behind you. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that. I also love Jack Yor. I have to say shout out to Jack Yor. Love his content. He's been one of our brilliant.
I'm not going to use that as the headline. Music boss loves Jack Yor.
I do. I love his music. Other genres, up and coming Shensia. I definitely think she has a huge upside, for sure. And we'll be looking to see what she does. Shaggy, Sean Paul goes without saying. Massacre, absolutely love what he's been doing, artistically over the years. I think 438 is going to be on my list of top dancehall albums now. Going back, Buju, Till Shiloh, one of the greatest compilations of reggae music ever put together. Protege, Let's jump over to soca. Bungie Garlin, Marshall Montano, Skinny Fabulous, Lyrical Voice. I think he is really carrying the flag right now for sure. What else? What other genre we want to go to?
I find so your musical taste is really Caribbean, right? Because I find that people from the Eastern Caribbean, and I know somebody from where you're from too, that they have a nice eclectic mix of music. Is it that when you're in the club, in your space, they play all of these cataclysm, like all this music come together?
I think, like any market, there is a genre that resounds, right? So dancehall is king of Jamaica at this point in time. I think in the Eastern Caribbean, I would say soca is the dominant genre. I do think, however, we would hear a bit more variety, generally speaking, in places where music is publicly played than I probably hear in, let's say, an event in Jamaica, for example. Yeah.
That's where Rock City comes from, right?
Rock City is from the USVI.
Oh, USVI. Oh, yeah. Because they have a song with Taurus. Let's wrap up. If you could advise young artists the way forward to go in this DSP-centered, streaming-centered music industry, what advice would you give them, up-and-coming acts?
We're going to take it back. I think you need to understand the business first. This is an industry that evolves as quickly as technology does, and I think you can appreciate the fact that there's an iPhone being released every 7 months, right? And so
the same iPhone, albeit.
But the reality is that you need to understand the foundation. And so my advice to any artist, whether you're looking at streaming or whatever the case may be, is understand the business you're in. It is a business. I think that's part of the missing conversation that we tend to not have, because we focus so much on the creative aspect that a lot of times the business is left behind. But I encourage every artist to try to learn that and understand the business of music, because it starts there. You need to understand, when I create something that I own, how do I monetize that, and how do I then build that, and how do I grow that? DSPs are a very big, obviously, big key component in terms of monetizing at this point. The big players, you need to be everywhere. It means understanding distribution. It means understanding how distribution works for you. So, my first conversation with any up-and-coming artist is, that the information is there. Go find it. Find somebody who can help you understand it, what you don't understand. But knowledge is power, and it's no different than any other space. Become a student of your craft.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brendan. Thank you so much. And this information is quite rich. One of the things we're doing with World Music Views now is highlighting how music is being turned into securities paper, catalogs being sold, people building major businesses, and man getting big money. Like I asked Shaggy recently on World Music Views if he would sell his catalog, which he says is one of the most synced catalog, because it was amazing ever commercial. Who do you think the hypnosis of the world should look to in Jamaica to buy up their catalog? Like, who you think have that? Can't say Bob. Bob Children say no. Bob Children told me no, they're not selling. They're selling enough already, and they're not selling none of this. So who else you think on the landscape with that catalog that would be valued at 100 million, like a Lil Wayne or whoever? Well,
I think the question should be, who has a catalog that would be attractive for a VC to come after? Let's say, right?
So it's media companies, it's VCs, Blackstone, it's Vanguard, it's Hypnosis, it's the Church of England. One of the investors in Hypnosis is the Church of England.
So I immediately you mentioned one name. I mean, Shaggy's catalog is incredible. I would have to add Sean Paul there. I mentioned Barry Hammond. prior to that. I think Jack Yo's catalog is quite valuable as well, interestingly enough. Yeah, those are probably the names that come to mind immediately. That I would say, okay, if I was looking at a catalog that I could monetize, because that's the game. Who has a catalog that holds the songs that have, because it's also based on what's happened with the catalog of music as well. It's not just because I have 100,000 songs I'm going to come looking to purchase it. It's about the value of the catalog. So which of those songs have become gold records, platinum records, multi-platinum records? And so within that conversation, there's only a handful of persons really. And so I think I've mentioned those people. So that's how I would look at that.
So why I lead you into that is because what I'm observing is that how you measure a catalog then can be how you measure it now, because the number one song on radio in 95, that's a valuable song. Number one song on radio right now is not a valuable song in Jamaica from reggae music. The number one song on YouTube is more valuable than the number one song on radio. But the people who are searching for catalogs, they'll be using that metric, which is that old way of the persons who you mentioned a while ago and them having gold records and such. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a new way to measure music? And in addition to what I just said, how else can music be measured?
Yeah, great question. We have moved the goalposts. Let's be fair, and it's a digital one, right? And so obviously we are being measured in streams, in this age, and so that is the key measure of really album success. If you're following anything in terms of music views and album performances, you're going to hear the album sales numbers being quite low, but you may hear the same artist had 1 billion streams, right? And so, the measure is a combination of all of the platforms. But at this point in time in the industry, streaming is king of the hill. So that is to me the new metric. Now you asked about other ways to measure music, and I think that's a longer conversation. But I think one of the things that needs to be looked at is comparables. Is it fair to measure success of an album produced in the Caribbean versus an album that's produced for a different audience in, let's say, Europe? And so that becoming a bit more segmented may be one way to do that. And as well as, we also need to look at genre and category. And that's a huge conversation, as you know, happening as we speak. Is the Grammy Award now inclusive enough to reflect, the genres of music that are now the sounds of the world? And so I think those conversations are happening, and I think it's good to see it happening. There's recently an article about, Afrobeats being considered. And I'd love to see what happens there, because there may be implications for us here in terms of soca, dancehall, etc. And so those are the things that I think we'll start seeing. There'll be more conversations happening around that, because the beauty of music is that it is creativity, and creativity cannot be boxed. And so it constantly changes, and therefore the measure has to reflect the change. And so that's my perspective on what I think will be coming in terms of that.
Dawson Lewis, thank you so much, Brethren. I have more questions, but I'm saving it for my next show. I want to interview you in studio. I have another show. I'm not releasing the name of it here, but I just signed off to do another show, and I want you in studio. I'm going to continue the same music business conversation and talk about some more things, all right? But this is World Music Views.
Great. Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, JR. I appreciate it.
All right, boss. Big up.
Yeah, man. Dawson Lewis, Digital Business Manager. You're tuned in to World Music Views.